Today, I will be discussing Freud, one of the most influential and controversial figures in the history of psychology. Freud is best known as the founder of psychoanalysis, a theory that emphasized the importance of unconscious mental processes in shaping human behavior. Although many of his ideas have been challenged or criticized over time, Freud permanently changed how psychologists think about personality, mental illness, and human motivation. In this presentation, I will discuss Freud's early life, his career influences, his major theories, his therapeutic techniques, criticisms of his work, and his lasting legacy within psychology. Freud was born in 1856 in Freiburg, Moravia, into a Jewish family that placed a strong emphasis on education and intellectual achievement. When Freud was still young, his family relocated to Vienna, a city that would play a major role in shaping his academic and professional career. Freud was an exceptional student and demonstrated early abilities in literature, languages, and science. At the age of 17, he began attending the University of Vienna, where he pursued a medical degree. His education provided him with a solid scientific background, while also exposing him to philosophical questions about human nature and the mind. After earning his medical degree, Freud began working in neurophysiology under the mentorship of Ernest Brucker. During this period, Freud believed that human behavior could be explained primarily through biological and physical processes. While working at Vienna General Hospital, Freud treated patients suffering from hysteria and unexplained neurological symptoms. Many of these patients showed physical symptoms without unclear medical causes. These experiences caused Freud to question traditional medical explanations and sparked his curiosity about psychological causes of mental distress. A major turning point in Freud's career occurred when he traveled to Paris to study under Jean Martin, a neurologist who used hypnosis to treat patients with hysteria. Jean Martin demonstrated that psychological factors could produce physical symptoms. After returning to Vienna, Freud collaborated with Josef Breuer, particularly on the famous case of Anna O. Breuer observed that Anna's symptoms improved when she spoke about painful memories. This talking cure inspired Freud to develop psychoanalysis, a therapeutic approach based on speech, emotional expression, and uncovering unconscious material. One of Freud's most influential contributions was his theory of the unconscious. Freud argued that much of human behavior is driven by thoughts, desires, and memories that remain outside conscious awareness. According to Freud, the unconscious mind is not passive, but actively influences emotions, decisions, and actions. He believed many psychological symptoms result from conflicts between unconscious desires and social expectations. This concept challenged earlier approaches in psychology by suggesting that understanding behavior requires examining hidden mental processes. To explain how mental conflicts occur, Freud proposed a three-part model of personality known as the ID, ego, and superego. The ID operates entirely in the unconscious and seeks immediate gratification of instinctual desires. The ego functions as a mediator between the ID and reality, making decisions that are socially acceptable. The superego represents internalized moral values and societal rules. Freud believed that tension among these three components produces anxiety and influences personality, development, and behavior. A central mechanism within Freud's theory is repression, which involves pushing unacceptable thoughts, impulses, or memories out of conscious awareness. Freud argued that repression is necessary for functioning in society, but unresolved repressed material often leads to psychological distress. Repressed thoughts do not disappear. Instead, they resurface indirectly through dreams, slips of the tongue, recurring behaviors, or neurotic symptoms. In the interpretation of dreams, Freud proposed that dreams represent symbolic expressions of unconscious wishes, offering insight into internal, hidden conflicts. Freud developed several therapeutic techniques aimed at accessing unconscious material. One of those was free association, which patients were encouraged to speak freely without filtering their thoughts. Freud also emphasized transference, where patients project emotions from past relationships onto the therapist. Additionally, Freud analyzed resistance, which occurs when patients avoid certain topics or emotions. Freud believed that gaining insight into unconscious conflicts allowed individuals to experience emotional relief and psychological healing. Despite Freud's enormous influence, his theories have faced significant criticism. Many critics argue that psychoanalysis lacks scientific validity because it cannot be tested empirically. Behaviorists rejected Freud's emphasis on unconscious processes and focused on only observable behavior. Feminist scholars criticized Freud's views on women and sexuality, noting gender bias in his theories. However, although many of Freud's ideas are disputed, modern research in cognitive psychology has shown that unconscious processes do influence behavior, in fact, supporting some of Freud's broader claims. Freud's legacy remains one of the most influential in the history of psychology. He fundamentally changed how psychologists think about the human mind by introducing the idea that behavior is shaped by not only conscious decisions, but also unconscious processes and internal conflict. Freud was one of the first thinkers to argue that psychological symptoms could be understood by exploring a person's past and hidden emotions. Even though many of Freud's specific theories are debated or criticized today, his broader approach laid the foundation for modern psychotherapy. Contemporary therapies, including psychodynamic therapy, continue to draw from Freud's emphasis on insight, self-reflection, and the importance of early experiences. Freud's influence also extends beyond psychology into psychiatry, literature, and philosophy, and popular culture. Overall, Freud's work helped establish psychology as a discipline that examines both observable behavior and the deeper inner workings of the human mind. And here is the references. Thank you for listening.